Everybody, welcome to this Microsoft 365 platform community call of October 5th, 2021. This week, I will be your host. My name is Sébastien Levert. I'm a senior PM on the Microsoft Graph Customer and Partner Experience team. And I'm so excited because today there's really two more than amazing topics that are going around that I'd love to introduce you to. We're going to do a little bit of around the Microsoft 365 platform land. Then Vesa will be providing the value. Vesa will be doing a really cool together mode photo. So everybody, when we're going to get at that point, open up your camera, do hand waving, and then afterwards we will be jumping into our two critical demos for today. One by Kristen and Vivian on the latest on the Microsoft Graph Explorer. And we're going to hand it over to Tejas, which will be discussing on how to get started using Microsoft Viva Connections in your tenant. And if time permits, we're going to have some Q&A at the end. So let me go through some of the latest updates around the Microsoft 365 platforms. So I wanted to highlight some of the resources that we have available for you all. The first one is our Microsoft 365 developer videos, where you can really learn about a ton of what the Microsoft 365 platform can offer to you. Afterwards, we have our Microsoft 365 community videos where you can learn from the community on how to do even more things on the Microsoft 365 platforms on different technologies, from the SharePoint framework to Microsoft Graph to Teams development and a bunch of other areas over there. We're also really, really strong in the Microsoft 365 space on open source. So we'd love if you want to contribute, get to know some of the open source initiatives that we have. You can go to github.com/SharePoint, github.com/PNP/OfficeDev or /Microsoft Graph, where you can really, really see everything that is available to you in our open source. You're more than welcome to contribute, to ask questions, to log in issues, to start discussions. We're really there for you, and the community is also there to help. We have lots of different sample galleries where you can get inspiration from other folks in the community that have built different web parts, different systems, different solutions that you can use in your own. So you have Teams, SPFX, the Power Platform samples, the SharePoint Framework extensions, but also list formatting for SharePoint. And finally, all of that under a single roof. So if you want to go to AKMS/M365PNP, you're going to really see all of this, all of the different calls that we host on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis that are right there. Some of the resources we have, but also lots of fun right there. So I encourage you all to go see all of these links. We also encourage you to look at our Microsoft 365 developer program. We offer free E5 developer licenses and a full access to a tenant and a bunch of other assets right there. It's free. If you use it, you're going to get automatically renewed. So it's a great way to start playing around the Microsoft 365 platform. You can do Teams development, Microsoft Graph stuff. You can do SharePoint framework development. Any type of development on Microsoft 365 is possible there, and is the perfect sandbox or playground for what you want to do in M365. So have a look, AKMS/M365/dev program. Amazing resources right there. Then afterwards, if you want to get started on learning different M365 areas, we have a lot of training modules that are available, from Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Graph Toolkit, to how to develop for Microsoft Teams. A lot of that is there. It's super insightful, extremely useful. I even went through some of that lately, and it's really a good way to either remind yourself of how technology is working or to get immersed in that technology if you're new to this platform. So definitely encourage you to learn more about the M365 platform with some of these learn modules that are right there. I think this is really, really cool. We now have a preview of the global Microsoft 365 sample gallery, where we have more than 500 samples that are provided from Microsoft or from the community that really helps you understanding what kind of the art of the possible, what others have been doing, what's possible in this type of technology, what's possible in this other type of technology. A single roof, it's amazing to see all of that in under a single platform. So AKMS M365/samples. It is in preview today. It's going to improve, but it's a really great way to start your journey into understanding what's possible on the M365 platform. Love to maybe hand it over to David Warner on all of the sharing is caring opportunities that exist right here.
Awesome. Thank you, Seb. Well, friends, as you heard Seb, there are tons of opportunities for you to collaborate and utilize the resources in the community, but we understand whether you're just wanting to use them or contribute back, there can be some hurdles that may prevent you from accomplishing that goal. Sharing is Caring is an initiative that's going to provide you hands-on guidance in a safe space, live opportunity for you to interact with members of the PNP team, members of Microsoft, others in the community. It's a great safe space, no recording, tons of opportunity to ask questions and get them answered and work together to remove those hurdles from you getting more involved. You can see there's a whole host of upcoming session topics. Our newest is the Power Platform Samples First-Time Contributor session coming up in late October, and the ever popular AMAs today following this call on list formatting with guest host Chris Kent. It's going to be a lot of fun. Go over to aka.ms/sharing-is-caring and smash that Join Teams button after this call to join that AMA. It's going to be a lot of fun, and also sign up for any other sessions. We'd love to see you, get more collaborative with you, and get you more involved in the community. Seb, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. Some other resources that we think are super useful for developers in the M365 space. Well, we have our Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast hosted by Jeremy Thake and Paul Scheifelein. On this podcast, you can really learn about tons different areas of M365 platform. Lately, they had Aisha Bash and Bob German around the bot framework Composer. Last week was around the Graph SDKs with Maisa and Daryl from our team. Just before that, around the Microsoft 365 app certification and SharePoint Online performance, AI cognitive services with Prashant. So a ton of resources right there. It's I would say on a weekly basis, right? Yeah, it's almost like on a weekly basis. So it's definitely something to subscribe to and give them a listen. It's awesome. It's really useful. And I think you can learn a lot from these two funny characters right there. Also, Microsoft Ignite registration is now open. So our yearly Ignite event will be happening from November 2nd to November 4th as a digital event. You can go to ignite.microsoft.com, create your profile right there, and you're going to be able to get all communications in the future. I think that's going to be a great Ignite, great momentum around the M365 platform, so you can definitely expect a lot of news and great content from us, Microsoft, and from the community. A couple of news that have happened in the last week. It's all about Teams this week. So on October 1st, we announced the general availability of the Microsoft Graph Export API for Microsoft Teams messages. Definitely invite you to go on and read everything around this announcement. Amazing API to get stuff out of Microsoft Teams for a compliance or from a DLP standpoint. Really, really powerful API right there. Two other blog posts also in the tech community, one around the updated navigation in Microsoft Teams, super useful in the admin center. So if you've been playing around the admin center a lot, definitely this is going to be super helpful because we're kind of simplifying the way you can navigate the admin center. And finally, the most awaited blog post of all the month around Teams, which is the What's New in Microsoft Teams for September 2021, where there's a ton of new capabilities, new features, new everything that were announced. So please check them out. All the links are there. Please go and see what's available in there, because I think we're getting like a blog every 4 hours or something like that. It's really, really, really busy these days. So feel free to go there and get the latest news. Now, it's optional picture time. So if you want to open up your video, we'd love to grab a together mode pic with everybody. So everybody on the camera, Vesta will steal the screen so we can grab us waving hands.
And we're hitting the 50 maximum again pretty fast. This is really cool. Everything seems to be working today really, really well. So let's start hand waving, everybody. I think we're maxed out. Thanks everybody for joining again today. Thank you, Seth, for being the example in the spotlight. Awesome work. Excellent.
Oh yeah, I'm
Really
spotlighted, right?
Yes. Excellent. Let's get back on the slides and demos. Thanks everybody. Really good. And Chris is doing still a great job. So good job, Chris, on the middle. So a lot of good ones there.
Let me go back to our PowerPoint Live. Now is time for our guests for today. So Kristen and Vivian on latest on Microsoft Graphic Explorer. I'm going to turn it to you guys.
Thanks, Sam. We're going to take over the airwaves and project.
Absolutely.
The real stars of today. Here we go.
Absolutely.
All right. So Vivian and I are here to talk about Microsoft Graphic Explorer, and we're going to talk about a couple of new features. All right. So we're going to talk about Microsoft Graphic Explorer. First, we'll start by introducing ourselves. So I'll let Vivian go first.
Thank you for that, Kristen, and thank you so much, Sebastian, for the invitation. So my name is Vivian Adhiambo, as you can see from the slide, and I'm one of the engineering managers in Microsoft Graph Developer Experience team, and I'm actually super thrilled to be joining this session. Actually, it's my first session, so I was actually caught by surprise yesterday when Sebastian, you tweeted about it. So I'm really, really excited about talking about Graph Explorer and also getting to meet everyone on the call. Back to you, Kristen.
All right, and I'm Kristen Womack. I'm the DevX PM lead, and I work really closely with Vivian. Our teams work together to build Graph Explorer. And yeah, this is also my first time on the call, I believe. I've attended but never presented. So I'm really excited to be here with Vivian and with Seb and all of you. Today, we're going to demo three things for you. We're going to talk about pagination, expand window, and Resource Explorer. We've kind of designed our demo so that the meat of everything is with Resource Explorer. And what we're really hoping is that we can talk a lot in chat or raise your hand and ask questions. But we want to leave time for community conversation about things that you really love about Graph Explorer, places there are friction, things that you think are needed in Graph Explorer, and we want to leave this as really like an open conversation. So first, we'll start with pagination. And so we're going to flip over to the demo. In Graph Explorer, if you were to select a sample query on the left, like get mail, something that has a long collection that you would need to go through several pages of result set, in the past, what would happen is you would have to, if you want to go ahead and click get my mail, then you'll see at the end of the query parameter, there's parameters that are added that show going through each of those. And right now, what we've added is if you click the link to follow this link, we added OData next link properties in the query response. And this is to improve the navigation experience when moving through large collections. So some queries will return multiple pages of data, and this is either due to server-side paging or use of the top query parameter. And this will specifically limit the page design. So this is really by design, but how you move through it now is a little bit more automated in Graph Explorer. So when the result set has multiple pages, now Graph returns the OData.next link property in the response, and that contains a URL to the next page. So this will save a lot of manual construction of graph queries on Graph Explorer by just clicking the link property right there. All right, and next we are going to show you the expand window. So when you're in Graph Explorer, there's, like an IDE or like most of our screens, there's many things happening at once. And so sometimes you need a little bit more space to do things. So we've given an option here where if, for example, you're on modify permissions, you can expand that window, and Vivian's going to pull it up and down a few times to show you that you get more space to use that real estate as you're working with either the request body, request headers, or modifying permissions. or the access token. So you can, give yourself a little bit more real estate and then close it back up when you're done, giving more flexibility. Okay, next we're going to talk about Resource Explorer, and this is really exciting. This is something that is like more of a sneak peek and a preview. It's not in production yet, but we're really excited about it. And I'm going to turn it over to Vivian to demo and tell you about this one.
Thank you so much, Kristen. So Resource Explorer, as Kristen has mentioned, is one of the latest features that we're trying to add to Graph Explorer. So what Resource Explorer entails, as the name suggests, of course, it's one of those functionalities that will provide the different Graph Explorer users with a different access in terms of resources of Graph API itself. So what I'm showcasing right now, as Kristen mentioned, is what we have on preview. And we are planning to have it as one of the tabs where the sample queries are. So when you look at this, the left side of the Graph Explorer window, you can see the resources part. And then it's going to be something like a tree like this. So I know a lot of people may be asking, so why Resource Explorer, right? So currently on Graph Explorer, in terms of when it comes to accessing the different queries on Graph itself, most of those queries are captured on the sample queries. But unfortunately, the sample queries only, as the name suggests, of course, only captures a snippet of a few of the Graph API queries itself. But with the Resource Explorer, a user is able to access all the different resources under Graph and also be able to select the different nodes. So in this particular case of Resource Explorer, what you're trying to achieve is showcase the different nodes under Graph API itself. And then once you are able to select the specific nodes you are interested in as a user, it will generate a request URL. So let's say if we selected, let me see if I can find a proper node. Let's see. Yeah, so basically, let's say you've selected one of the nodes here. The general idea is once you select this, it will auto-generate a query, which you'll be able to see on the run query text area, and then you should be able to run that particular query. So the other thing that you want to capture on Resource Explorer is once you select a specific node or query, you should be able to see the different API changes for that specific API. So I know that's something we currently don't have on Graph Explorer. So what we have in terms of the changelog only captures what has generally changed on Graph. But with Resource Explorer, to some extent, you will be able to access what has specifically changed for a specific API. And also, as you continue as a user to explore the different nodes under Resource Explorer, you should be able to see what are the different query options that map to this particular Graph API. So for example, you'll be able to see for this particular node, which maps to this specific API, these are the different query options that you can use to run the query. So I believe we can take questions in terms of what we've just presented so far. So this is something we are planning to roll out the Resource Explorer at least within the next 2 or 3 months. And I hope everyone will be really, really excited and be able to see the value in terms of being able to access all the different resources on Graph using Graph Explorer.
Kristen and Vivian, we have a question from Brian, which I think is a great question. Where can people leave feedback or even feature requests or any of that for Graph Explorer today?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah. So currently, we track all the issues, feature requests, bugs on the Graph Explorer GitHub repo. Actually, let me just share the link shortly on this chat. The other option, let me just share my screen. The other option is to log into Graph Explorer itself and then click on these three dots and then click report an issue. So when you click report an issue, it will take you directly to Graph Explorer. Then you have this template over here, report a bug or a feature request. And of course, we definitely do take this seriously in terms of being able to triage all the issues that have been created on Graph Explorer repo.
And then there's one more area where you can submit feedback in Graph Explorer. There's a submit feedback button, and that is more of general feedback for the product, and you're able to rate the Graph Explorer experience. And as a team, we go through these one by one and we read every single one of them. And what we try to do is also use some tactics for grouping them together into themes so that we can see where the biggest struggles are and the biggest themes are with the tool, and then go after that as a whole theme set to kind of have a minesweeper effect and take care of like a whole problem that a lot of people in the community are seeing. And so anytime you submit requests to us, it's almost like putting a vote in for us to work on it because we see these bigger clusters.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add is we try as much as possible also to label some of these tickets as good first issue so that whoever is interested in contributing to Graph Explorer repo, especially when you don't have, let's say, much time, but you really, really want to contribute to Graph Explorer, you could just come to Graph Explorer and filter by good first issue and see some of the tickets we have in that space and just get started right into it.
Oh, I see one other question. One is Graph API Beta going to the next stage. Can we use Beta API endpoint for production use? So we put newer things onto beta, and then V1 is sort of our feature that is production ready. You can trust it, you can build on it, and you have the option to toggle between the two when you're building and trying new features. So there will always be a beta endpoint.
We have two other questions that I think are super interesting for Graph Explorer. First one is it possible to set up variables or parameter in Graph Explorer like we can do in Postman today? A channel ID, a user ID, or whatsoever, so we can reuse it. Is that something that is considered for Graph Explorer?
Is that, oh, go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah, and then to save those parameters, so like API key or anything that might make using your collection go even faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something we talk about and think about a lot, is like, what is the value of Graph Explorer and where do the edges of Graph Explorer meet the edges of Postman? Because there are some reasons and some preferences in using each of the tools for different things. And so that's something that, yeah, we are thinking about and we do talk about. Vivian, were you going to add to that as well?
Yes. So as part of adding into Resource Explorer, in terms of the work we are doing in Resource Explorer, once a user is able to select the different nodes that can turn into different API queries, one of the things we are trying to work on is the capability to be able to export these queries into a Postman collection or be able to just save them and use them for future use.
That is awesome. I think that answers the question here. And the last one that we have is the Graph Explorer a PWA, a progressive web app that could be installed locally, like Postman, you can use it on the browser or locally. Is Graph Explorer right now a PWA, or is there any plans on making it a PWA in the future?
Right now, it's a single page app, and we don't have any near-term plans to make it a PWA.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any other question, but we're coming at time anyway. So I wanted to thank you so much for your time today, Kristen and Vivian. And feel free, everybody in the community, to continue providing the feedback on the chat. Vivian, Kristen, myself, a bunch of people will be looking at it and bringing it back to the team to make sure that we have the best Graph Explorer possible. The Graph Explorer makes my work like so much easier that it's definitely something that I want to be able to see improvements, and we're going to funnel these improvements to Kristen, Vivian, and our new PM that actually started a couple of days ago, specifically for Graphic Explorer. Awesome. Well, Kristen, Vivian, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Seb.
Thank you too, Sebastian.
Now we're going to continue with another topic, another technology. We're going to talk about Viva Connections. And Tejas, go ahead, take over, and you're now the new star of our show.
All right, thanks, Seb. Just give me just a moment to get my slides on the screen.
Getting there.
So hello, everyone. My name is Tejas Mehta, and I'm a program manager on the SharePoint Experiences team. I primarily focus on Viva Connections. I'm also responsible for features in our SharePoint portals and publishing system. This particular session, I'm going to be talking to you about getting started with Viva Connections in your respective tenants. I'm going to turn off my camera because I'm hearing a little bit of a jitter or a lag, but I'll turn it back on when we get to Q&A. So let's dig in. Okay. First, just a quick introduction to Microsoft Viva. If you're unfamiliar, Microsoft Viva is a new solution that helps organizations and people thrive. Viva is all about putting employees at the center, and it gives everyone what they need to be at their best and help them focus on what matters most. Microsoft Viva is an integrated, insights-driven employee experience platform that brings together communications, knowledge, learning, and workplace insights. Powered by Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams, Viva helps your organization build human connection, foster growth and well-being, and drive peak business performance. So you'll see Viva portfolio. There are currently 4 modules. The focus for this session is Connections. Connections is a new employee app in Teams and is the gateway to your employee experience. It provides employees with personalized news, communications, tasks, people, and resources, and it provides a single curated employee destination that can be configured for specific roles like frontline workers and branded to match your company. So leaders can communicate and engage their employees, and employees can get easy access to the tools and resources they need from a single place. Connections builds on existing capabilities in Microsoft 365 like SharePoint and Yammer, and it pulls your communications together into a pre-configured app in Teams designed both for desktop and mobile workers. So Connections provides 3 interactive experiences for employees in the mobile experience. First is a personalized dashboard that makes it easy to get to company and role-specific tasks, actions, and can also be tailored for different audiences. It includes a personalized feed that rolls up company news, information, and discussions so that you can stay on top of the latest and greatest in your organization. And it includes a resources experience that provides easy navigation and wayfinding to important employee resources that my organization programmed for me. And best of all, it's built on top of Microsoft Teams, as I mentioned before, and it pulls in signals and content from your current Microsoft 365 investments like SharePoint, Teams, Yammer, Stream, and more into a single consolidated and customizable single pane for every employee. Okay, in terms of availability, Connections is currently available in public preview, and it provides both a desktop experience that you might already be familiar with. It's the one that we released earlier this year, back in March. But that capability also includes now a dashboard and feed web parts that you can add to the desktop experience. But more importantly, we've also now included the mobile app experience in Teams, and that includes those 3 pivots that I just talked about with the dashboard, feed, and resources, and it delivers a rich, fast experience for users. So I think that's mostly it from my preamble before I switch gears and spend time talking about how you can get started from a setup and config perspective. So there are a few things you need to make sure you've completed in order to deliver the best Viva Connections experiences for your users. Many of these you might have already done in your environments, but for completeness, I just wanted to run through the checklist here. You'll need 1, an intranet built on SharePoint Online. 2, you'll need a home site. This is the experience that surfaces in the Teams desktop and web apps. 3rd, you'll need global navigation. So this is the set of curated links that will be available across things like the SharePoint app bar, the Teams navigation panel in the Viva Connections app inside of Teams, which I'll show you in just a moment for the desktop and web experiences, as well as the resources experience of the pivot in the Teams mobile app. Fourth, you'll need a dashboard, and this is going to provide that native experience for the dashboard cards in Teams for iOS and Android. And lastly, you'll need to set up the app in Teams Admin Center, providing things like the naming and branding for the app, and taking some policy actions like pre-installing or pre-pinning it for users in your tenant. So across all of these areas, you'll require multiple personas that really work together, from SharePoint admins to home site editors to Teams admins. And in this session, I'll actually walk through everything except the first step. My presumption is that you're already starting with an intranet built on SharePoint. I think I'm going to transition over to demo. Give me a second. All right. So here I am in my demo tenant ReliCloud. I'm on the root site in my tenant, and it happens to be a modern communication site. The first step that I'd mentioned before that we're going to take is we want to set a home site for this tenant. So we've introduced a new UI in SharePoint Admin Center to make it easy to set a home site for your tenant. So here I am in the SharePoint Admin Center. I'm going to click on Settings, and you'll see that there's a home site option here. Let me click on that. Panel slides out. I've actually set the home site just a few minutes prior to the session because it does take a few minutes for these settings to actually flow through to the underlying home site. So I did that previously, but you can see that you can set that here. It's new UX. Previously, you needed to use PowerShell to do that. So step one, complete, home site set. I'm going to switch back over to the home site in the tenant. And now we're going to set up global navigation. So global navigation, as I mentioned before, is the set of curated links that will surface across SharePoint app bar, the nav panel in Teams, and the resources pivot in the Viva Connections app on Teams Mobile. And if you click on the gear menu here, you will see global navigation. And that brings me to a panel where I can enable global navigation. So I'll click on that toggle. And let me see if I can quickly upload an icon. The title ReliCloud is good. Navigation source, I'm just going to leave it as Hub or Global Navigation. And I'm going to click on Edit Global Nav, which brings me with it to a nav editing experience. So I'm just going to add the link to the landing itself as the top node here and call it landing. So as easy as that, I can start building out that curated set of links that I want to make available to all of my employees in my organization. You'll notice a toggle at the bottom. I can enable audience targeting, and that really allows me to make a tailored navigation experience for different groups of users within my organization. So I'm not going to build out all of the global navigation in this session, but I do have another tenant where I've done all of that already. So I'll just click over to that one. It's basically the same looking site, and global navigation has been programmed here, and you'll see that there's multiple levels of nodes. Entire links or nodes can be audience targeted as well. All right, so that's the second step. Let me come back to this tenant here. All right, so we've set the home site and we've set up global navigation. The next step is to create a dashboard. So I'm going to go back to the gear menu here, and you'll see a node here that says set up Viva Connections. So I'll click on that. You get a panel that tells you a little bit about what Viva Connections is, and you have an option to create a dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Dashboard. See that I'm brought to an edit experience for a new dashboard content type that I've created in the home site. I'm going to click through this first run experience, which orients the user if they've never seen it before, and I'll walk through some of the capabilities here. So the first thing I can do is start adding cards. So I'll pause here and see in the toolbox, you'll see that there's a set of card types that are available from the dashboard toolbox. There's a tasks card, a Teams app card that will allow me to pick any Teams app or bot available in my store, and web link. I'm going to click on web link here and edit that. See that I can configure these these cards with different properties. So I can choose from different sizes of the card. I'm going to choose a website, xbox.com. It will pull some of the information directly from the web service. I have options to change the thumbnail or the icon that you see, or even the card description. So I can really configure the web link card to suit my needs. One thing to note is, similar to the audience targeting capability that we have in the global navigation, every card on the dashboard is available for it to be audience targeted as well. So as you build out your dashboard experience, you can actually tailor it to different audiences or different groups of people within your organization. So it's actually a fairly straightforward process to add multiple cards to the dashboard. I'm going to click Teams app here, and just to give you an idea, this will pull from all of the Teams apps that are available in my tenant. I can go and pick any one of these. Okay, so again, similar to, I'm just going to go and publish this for now. Great. And I'm going to switch over to that other tenant where I've already baked all of these things and just show you kind of examples of some of the cards that are available here. Many of the cards here have been mocked up by our card designer, but you'll see that you've got various sizes on the dashboard. We've got cards which have multiple levels of experience, so you can either tap on the card that will take you to a web link, or you can deep link them directly to Teams apps, or shell out to a browser kind of experience. So an example here is the holidays card, and I'll tap on see all, and you'll see using the SPFX card extension framework, I'm able to build these level 2 quick view experiences from which I can interact, take actions, or potentially even click out to kind of a deep linked application. So I think that's it for creating the dashboard. Oh, there was one other thing that I wanted to show you. So let me go back to, actually I'll stay in this one. So if I go to edit mode for the dashboard, we provide a preview capability. So if I was to click on preview, I can see what the dashboard will look like by different form factors. So this is what it looks like in mobile, and I can actually scroll through it here. I can see what it would look like if rendered in desktop mode. But you'll notice that there's a banner that shows up top that some cards are not being shown because they're audience targeted. To see them, add more audiences to preview. So we also have introduced the ability to preview the dashboard as if you were a member of different audiences. So in this case, you can, as I click or unclick different audiences, the dashboard reflows and gives you an idea of what the dashboard would look like if you were a member of, in this case, a communications group and the Contoso marketing group. Okay, so I'm going to close out of preview here, discard these changes. Okay, all right, so that's, we've set the home site, we've set up global navigation, we've created the dashboard. Now I think we get to move over to how do we get this set up in my tenant so that my users can start using the app inside of Teams. So I'm going to come back to my new tenant, and I will go over to Teams Admin Center. All right, so this is relatively straightforward. So I go to Manage Apps, and if you've never touched the Viva Connections app in Teams Admin Center yet, you can search for it. And you'll see that it shows up here as Viva Connections. I will click on that. And I have a few options here. You'll see that it's sort of default branded with the Microsoft Viva logo, and it has metadata that corresponds with the Viva Connections app. You'll see that the app is in the allowed state, but in any of your tenants, the app is rolling out in a default off or blocked state. And that's done intentionally because there are some of the prerequisite steps that I showed you just now. You need to make sure that you have a home site, global navigation, and a dashboard. So we didn't want to have the app in a default allowed state, which would enable users to discover and install the app and have not a great experience. So the idea is it will ship in a block state. You go and do all of the pre-configuration steps, and when the admin is ready, they can go and enable the app for users in the tenant. So I'm going to click on the customized pencil here and update some of the properties. So this is going to be my Relic Cloud app in my tenant. I will leave all of these other things for now. I will upload an icon for that. It will be my corporate Relic Cloud logo. There's a outline icon required as well. I'll upload that here too. And I'm going to add an accent color because on mobile, I want all of the theming to match with the color scheme for my home site. And that is the teal-ish color that matches with my landing site. So I'm going to click on Apply now and publish the application. One thing to note is when you're making changes in Teams Admin Center, it could take up to 24 hours for these changes to flow through. So you'll even see here that the logo didn't catch right away. I'm going to quickly refresh to see if that does take. It did. All right, so great. So at this point, the app is allowed in my tenant and users are able to access the app. Another thing that we advise you do is look at your setup policies, and for Viva Connections, it's an opportunity to bring that app into the app bar as a pinned app by default. So there are a few options here. You can pre-install this particular app for your users. I'm going to search for Relic Cloud now because that's the new name of the Viva Connections app in my tenant. So I'll add that to the list of apps that are installed in my users' personal environments. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add this app pinned for all of my users. And I'd like to pin that all the way at the top. So I will click on Save. So as I'd mentioned before, I think any changes that you make here can take a little bit of time to trickle out to all of the clients in my tenant. You can also use app permissions policies to specify which users in your organization have access to the app as well. And that's a useful set of policies that you can define as you build out Viva Connections in your environments, or sort of slowly expand the rings of people that have access to the app inside the tenant. Okay, so I think that is the setup steps from Teams Admin Center. I'm going to click back to the Teams experience in the same tenant. So let's see if, I said 24 hours, there's a good chance that you won't see the app here yet. Yeah, it was wishful thinking. So I'm going to flip over to my other tenant that I already have in place. And this is the app now that shows up in the desktop experience. So you'll see that it's pinned here as an app in the Teams app bar. I can click on the Relic Cloud logo and have access to those global navigation resources that I programmed earlier. This is the nav panel. So the global navigation kind of represents the top third of what you see here. The next third is my site. So these are sites that I've been following. So I have an intention to keep these sites around from a wayfinding perspective. And then there's a third bucket of sites that show up that are news that's tailored for me as an employee. So that's the nav panel experience that you get by clicking on the nav, by the icon in the nav. And you'll see a couple of things that I've done here that weren't in the other tenant. I've added the dashboard web part, which is now available on the home site itself. So you're seeing the very same dashboard show up right here on the home page itself. And there's a feed web part that I've also added to the home page. So it's an opportunity to take elements of what shows up in the mobile experience for Viva Connections and actually building that connection back, pun intended, to the desktop experience. So I'm going to switch and show you how this looks on the mobile experience. So give me just a moment to switch. So quickly, just to kind of show you how this manifests in mobile now that I've done all the configuration, you've got the dashboard tab, and the same set of cards that I've curated or that I've created, and I have them here. You can tap on See All for the holidays card, so I have that sort of L2 quick view experience. You'll see that the branded ReliCloud app is showing up in the tray down below, pinned all the way to the left. And we'll tap on the feed. You'll see the very same feed show up here. I'll scroll a little bit slowly, but you'll see that there's some boosted news. That's a new feature that allows you to show news prominently to users. There are going to be Yammer conversations that show up here. You'll see one from Patty Fernandez. I can interact with items in the feed by liking or commenting on these entities. And then the last one that I'll show is I'll tap on resources. So this is that very same set of curated links, really building confidence with my employees that I can get to all of the corporate resources or organizational resources that are important. Tap on that. I meant to expand it so you can see all of the same nodes show up here as well. Okay, so I think that's it for demo. I'm going to come back to my slides real quick. So I'll just build this slide out really quickly. We talked about dashboard cards, and there are some opportunities here. The example that I showed was a card that had a quick view experience. So that's the secondary experience that you get when you tap on an action on the card itself. So the example you see on the screen here is a health check card that comes, and then from that second level quick view experience, you have the option to either send a user to a web experience in mobile browser or deep link to a Teams app. Now that quick view is an optional capability if you're building out your own dashboard cards, but it is something, it's a great way to bring that fast, lightweight, interactive capability to the dashboard, really making the dashboard experience useful for your users. Okay, and as noted earlier, I did mention that you can leverage the SharePoint framework and our card extensibility model to build out those custom cards for your specific scenarios. I'd mentioned that there are a number of out-of-box cards like the tasks card, the web link card. We'll have card designer, and then we have a whole slew of third-party ISVs that are building integrations that some have been announced and some are forthcoming as well. And then obviously with the framework, you have the opportunity to build out rich card-based experiences for your dashboard as well. Did I come in okay on time? I'm going to turn my camera back on. If we've got a few minutes for Q&A, happy to do that.
We're absolutely on time. It was awesome. Thank you so much for that round through. It was great to see all that Viva connection right there.
Awesome. And I saw a number of messages fly through while I was presenting. You probably saw that on my mobile phone. If I don't get a chance to answer them all here, I will, after the meeting, spend some time going through and addressing those. Were there any questions that you, Seb or Vesa, would like to curate?
There's one, the last one, which is interesting. Someone seems to not have Viva Connections preview on their tenant. How do you get it? Like, is it supposed to be light flighted or it's rolling out?
That's a great question. If you are a production tenant, you should have Viva Connections, the preview app in your tenant. It has rolled all the way out to Ring 4. So there's two parts of the rollout. There's the Teams first-party app itself, and that has rolled out all the way to Ring 4, so you should see it there. And then there's the SharePoint publishing side of the code. So that's the dashboard authoring experience, the preview capability. Both of those things needed to be coordinated to be rolled out, but we did it in a fashion where the SharePoint bits went first, and then the Teams, the Viva Connections app in Teams came next. So if you happen to not be in a tenant for Ring 4, there are some cases where if your tenant happens to be in a tap or a preview in a pre-Ring 4 configuration, it's possible that the app doesn't show up. But for the most part, all production tenants should see the app now. Not in GCC yet. So if you're a GCC tenant, that will come later.
Awesome. And one question that came up a couple of times in the chat, why do we need a home site to be able to use Viva Connections? Why do we need to specify a home site for this site to show up over there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the sort of the bet that we're making with Viva Connections is being a top experience. This is a marquee first-party employee engagement experience from Microsoft, and being built on SharePoint from an infrastructure and IA perspective. We really do want customers to use the tops of their intranet as the experience that's hosted inside the Teams frame. And that is the home site is the place where global navigation that you see across those experiences hosted. It is the place where the dashboard is created. So it makes sense to kind of co-locate the same site that you're going to be hosting inside the Teams frame with some of those other things. So that's kind of the main reason. There's probably some additional questions around, well, what if I have other sites, or if I want multiple instances or multiple home sites? All of those things are on the table for us right now. We are looking at providing sort of the capability of having multiple instances of Viva Connections in your tenant. The implication there being that, hey, I probably need to have multiple support for multiple home sites in my tenant. I can say working on it. So that's certainly something that we want to make available for you all.
Awesome. Well, there's a couple of other questions in the chat. I'm going to let you respond to them directly over there, as I just want to close out the call as we're getting at close to the top of the hour. So wanted to remind everybody around what are the different community calls that we have. The M365 platform call, adaptive cards, the identity platform, the Office add-ins, Power Apps. All of these are available on aka.ms/M365PNP. Go there, learn. There's a lot to learn. So feel free to spend some time watching those resources. We also have all the recordings for sure. The recording for this specific call will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel. Please follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev and at M365PNP. The next Microsoft 365 platform call will be on October 12th at 8 a.m. Pacific. And until the next time, I'd love to wish you a great end to your day and talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody.
Excellent, awesome job. Really good job, everybody. Thanks, Vivian, Kristen, and Tejas. Great. And Seb, absolutely brilliant. And I got a special gift for you waiting when we get stuff out. So really good. So.
Cheers, folks.